So welcome back to what is our next to last session for today's No Filter Nuts and Bolts for Life After High School program. And with us for this next session, or presenting this next session, are Koren and Danyelle Hoover from IUP's Division of University Advancement. So Chris and Danyelle, you can take it away.
Our session today is geared for our families and students of the participating school districts in the area and IU. We know that there's a lot of options after high school, and we're just happy that we can offer some perspective given from where we work, where our life experiences have taken us individually, and the information that you'll hear today is really going to help just again add to your toolkit on making the best decisions with knowing what the landscape is after high school. So we'll start off with introductions. My name is Koren, and I serve as the Director of Strategic Partnerships for Indiana University of Pennsylvania. I've been here in the role now for a year and a half, and I'm actually working on my continuing graduate education. I'm all but dissertation in the doctoral program in education for administration and leadership. So I'm just working on the dissertation at this point, and I do serve as an adjunct instructor, which is like a part-time evening faculty member at another nearby private college. So I do have a good sense of the experience. I come from different areas of higher education and also in the classroom teaching students. So a lot of times I've been surrounded by, questions and a lot of support from family members over the years. So we're just trying to target what kind of information would be beneficial for you. And I'm joined by my colleague, Danyelle Hoover, and I'm going to look to her for her introduction.
Hi, I'm Danyelle Hoover. I am currently a development research manager here at IUP, and in that role, I try to identify funding opportunities as well as prospective donors to the university. And I also try to find causes on campus that would excite donors, and so that our gift officers can pair those donors with causes they'd want to get behind here at IUP. I am a Northern Cambria alumnus. I am an IUP alumnus, and I was previously an intelligence research specialist for the FBI, US DOJ, and I kind of, when our congressman passed away and that job kind of moved to the Beltway, I was able to pivot a lot due to my experiences at IUP, and also coming from the Northern Cambria community, and found a job here at IUP that's actually very similar to intelligence work that I had been doing. And so I'm echoing the statements made in our previous session about you never know where you're going to end up and what kind of job you're going to end up doing. And so I'm also a parent of a student who has graduated from IUP, a parent of a student who's a freshman at IUP. So I've got a lot of hats, and I'm so excited to be here today and share my experiences to help others that are coming in this direction.
Thanks, Danyelle. All right. So we just wanted to put a quote up here that experience is not what happens to you, but it's what you do with what happens to you. And we think that this really sums up when you're preparing to make that decision as a family and as an individual student about what you would like to do is in your next step in your life. So it's just about understanding that everything, seeking information, asking questions, researching the different options is all part of different types of experiences that make you who you are today. And we heard from a great set of panelists that there are many options after high school: apprenticeships, college or trade school, volunteer work. That's kind of the areas of where we're going to be focusing today, because those link to post-secondary opportunities. But that's not to say that we had some great information shared about, entering the workforce and then also the military. So there's many different tracks. This particular session is just going to focus on these areas and how they do connect as options for post-secondary education, and where you can get research for how to make links with these three avenues. The apprenticeship training, that's one thing we just wanted, it's a good reminder, coming off the tail end of, Mr. Bowser's presentation, talking about what they're doing at JWF was wonderful. But again, a recap on apprenticeship programs. They give you the opportunity to learn a skill while working, and an apprenticeship can last 1 to 5 years, depending on the career. We're seeing students start while they're in high school, and where there's special programs that are designed now to give an advanced experience to students looking to go into a trade. So we just want to really focus on these unique opportunities, not only just for trades, but we'll go into the other opportunities that might link to post-secondary. Apprentices work with experienced workers, so you're alongside on-the-job training, and for many of you, you can attest, sometimes, there's book information, there's testing, there's writing, but when it comes to on-the-job training or any type of experience, when you're hands-on, I think that speaks itself and gives you a unique experience. You can earn wages while you're going through an apprenticeship, which is very unique. And one thing that we wanted to say is that we've now seen a trend for people who are interested in an apprenticeship, but also having it connect to a 2- and 4-year pathway. So you're going to see more opportunities surface, and that information can come to you through guidance counselor offices, through high school administrators, through different chambers of commerce, or types of organizations like that, or even universities themselves. For example, we're seeing that, we want students to take certain pathways of dual enrollment courses. Those are college and high school courses that are designed for high school students to get an early start and a savings on getting college track courses under their belt and getting a grade for those and allowing those to transfer into a program. And what we're seeing is that those dual enrollment programs are now strategically linked to apprenticeships, because they're seeing, the workforce world out there, and industry leaders are saying, yeah, it's great. We have students that want to come out with an associate's degree, if possible, while they're graduating high school. There's many programs like that in this area, and we can give you more information after this presentation. But what we're seeing is that link, they also want them to have the coupled skill set too. So there's unique experiences offered where if they're in a certain dual enrolled path, they can be eligible to sign up for certain apprenticeships. So those kind of opportunities, not only do you get savings because you're paying a different price than what you would pay after you graduate high school if you're looking for a certificate program or a 2-year program or a 4-year program. And then we're also seeing that link to opportunities where there's a competitive advantage on apprenticeships, which usually end into a full-time career hire. So it's just being aware of this unique opportunity. This PowerPoint will be available by IUP and Aaron, but every slide, we've made sure that we've included websites that Danyelle and I certainly recommend you looking at, starting to canvas and seeing what kind of opportunities and applications you can sign up and get started on, because the earlier the better. The volunteer, this is what we're really seeing as a gap year. It's a trended name. And so we're seeing the volunteer experience not necessarily a bad thing. You might instantly as a parent or instantly as a student say, what would I do if I didn't go into the military or the workforce or a traditional 4-year program? You're saying if I go volunteer, I could be okay doing that? Yes, you can. Some students are deciding to take time either before they would get started, right after high school, in a formal track, career or education. And they're using that as a gap year to get some life experiences, people interaction, global awareness, learning about different community and needs, and then also learning more about themselves. And it really is a way to meet new contacts and network, and these opportunities are endless. I'm seeing a big trend in how AmeriCorps and Job Corps, and usually, there's so many different corps, like different organizations that have designed for 18 to 24-year-olds an opportunity where they can travel the world, where they can, serve others, that they can see, things and experience opportunities where they wouldn't get that necessarily at home. And so it could last anywhere from a couple months to a summer to a full year or more. You really can dictate that depending on what program you apply for. There is an application process to, doing a gap year, and that's something to be definitely cognizant of, moving forward. But one thing to pay particular close attention, if you're in, you have your student or you're a family member that's, having these dialogues about, understanding that there is a heart for service and that's something that's a passion for someone, and that you'd like to pursue that, that what we're seeing is that, if you start talking now with some of the colleges and understanding that, there's a gap year, even an incentive, if they do a gap year, they can get a year, paused on their application, they can apply and then have some time to do the gap year and then have their admissions status as accepted on hold until they complete that gap year. So there's a lot of admissions counselors working with new students on working with them on this particular gap year initiative. So I do recommend it. It is unique. It's not talked about as much because immediately I think parents will jump to say, well, you're not going to make money. Well, there are some stipends that are built into these programs, and most of the time the major expenses like lodging and food are taken care of with whatever built-in capacity that those volunteer programs can provide. We offered, again, information about City Year is really based out of Philadelphia and AmeriCorps, which is probably the most recognizable volunteer organization that you can get involved in at a young age. And you usually get, monthly stipends. There are scholarships available for once you complete your year of service, you can use that to apply for a formal education track or use that education stipend for, getting right into the workforce if that's your selected choice. It can also provide an advantage to apply for the military or for other positions in that realm. And it's an opportunity to gain job skills and work experience. And so we've included those links. All these links will be live, so it can be quickly when you sift through this presentation in the evenings at your own time and be connected with these websites. And again, it can be before or after any formal education experience. And it is important to know that, after a 4-year track and you want to do volunteer, the same thing applies, the same kind of setup. So we do recommend just being aware and researching. Now, post-secondary education, that's where Danielle and I are really coming in today to talk to you about, is that, pursuing education beyond high school could either mean, what we heard from the panelists, community college or a 4-year college or university, or you can enroll in a career trade school. These are all good choices, and that all is really dependent on where the student's needs and interests are at that given time. And so these are just, again, some good reminders on the benefits of a bachelor's degree program. We've heard already earlier in the day that a 4-year college degree can provide students with wide range of career choices. If you think, on average, there's each college and university in Pennsylvania has over 50 academic majors. And just keep in mind that there's over 250 institutions of higher education in just the state of Pennsylvania. So that there's a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of opportunities and it really is the buyer's market. It's really the families and students can really have the opportunity to really look and see such a wide range. You can study in a rural, suburban, urban setting if you like. We have everything here. In fact, we have too much, but that's not for this conversation today. But a 4-year degree programs can be available through state or private colleges. And of course, aid packages in that differ depending on those types of institutions. And we'll get into that a little later. And it's important to plan for what you want to study. I can't say it enough, it's an investment and it's important to research to get ahead. We wanted to show you that these are the top 10 college search engines as of 2021. College Board's Big Future. Now, keep in mind, all of these listed here today, most of the time, they're doing independent data collections, they're doing independent surveys with certain groups, but you always have to be just a little cautious of what are these companies, who are they targeting, and take it only into small consideration, because you never know if colleges are paying to be sponsored in some of these website search engines or not. Just keep in mind, Niche has offices in Pittsburgh, and some of the employees I've met there over the years, have said, yeah, they've been approached by certain institutions of higher ed in this region of Western PA to try to sway whatever information is listed about their institution on their website. So you just have to be very cognizant that these are wonderful search engines, but they can certainly be heavily weighted if they allow for colleges to pay to be, available and present and be, one of the top search findings. So that's one thing I didn't recognize when I was in high school, and certainly my parents, we did not think about those things. We just took it for granted that those would be the best search engines that you could look at. Danielle did want to add in that pasmart.pa.gov. That is really a good tool. Danielle, do you want to add anything about that in particular?
It's actually just a wonderful resource, regardless of whether you want to do a college or a trade school, and it offers so much information about, of course, schools in Pennsylvania, but you can go in there and you can start looking as early as, a freshman year in high school and start to build a plan and start to take advantage of the resources that are there to help you and your student to navigate, what does my student want to do? It's just a fabulous wealth of information, and I would highly suggest start there, because it's not, like Chris was talking about, these aren't schools that pay to be on the site. They're on the site because they're in Pennsylvania. So absolutely use this as a starting point. And then there are colleges who work through programs in Pennsylvania that can help you, like when you're talking about, my school offers dual enrollment classes. So you want to make sure that those dual enrollment classes that you're paying for either, at IUP or Mount Aloysius or Cambria County Community College or whatever, making sure, yes, you're paying for those and they are college credits, but when your student goes to, say, IUP or Slippery Rock, do those courses actually transfer to anything that is useful to work towards your degree? So working closely through the program at PA Smart and using that alongside your resources with your school guidance counselor will really save you time and money, because I actually paid for 2 of my kids to take classes that were dual enrollment classes from other schools. They both came to IUP, and not all of those credits transferred, but I was a first-time college mom, so I was just excited that they were taking these dual enrollment classes, and they did well in the classes, and it was a good experience. But it might have been $300 that I didn't need to spend, because when it turns out, it didn't work toward my daughter's degree. So just a great place to start if you're fresh to this system.
Thanks, Danielle. Post-secondary education associate degrees, often referred to as two-year degrees, and usually they're rooted out of community colleges or technical colleges, but four-year institutions like IUP and others do offer them as well. The students can complete a short-term program, and you usually get a pretty good a sense when you're looking just to pursue associate's degrees on what other kind of complementary credentialing can be offered for a 2-year degree. And a lot of times you'll see maybe a general associate's in science, but a certificate in a certain particular area that would complement, maybe a general degree, 2-year degree with a certain specialty in certificates. Definitely, again, those kind of conversations are best when you're at the admissions office talking about, well, if I do a 2-year degree, I know that does open some additional doors, but if I get some additional credentialing, what would that look for? And again, saving time, because that's not your 4-year degree experience and your 4-year investment in terms of money. So those who are looking for a 2-year program, just be alert of the new pathways. I'm sure you've seen it on billboards all around this region. There are, again, and it probably is directly linked to the competitive landscape of Pennsylvania with having over 250 institutions of higher ed, is that now, colleges on the front end, and when we say front end, that means admissions. They're very astute and trying to be very nimble on trying to attract anyone with a 2-year degree on pathways to a 4-year degree. And there are some special new scholarships available, because we see even, you know, some investment made by Harrisburg. You know, government officials are saying, you know, again, as you continue advancing your career, and if degrees are required for your said career, you know, there could be support in terms of financial aid for you to continue on, either from your organization or from that institution you're seeking to advance your education from. And there is, you know, and if you go and approach that institution and say, okay, I have a current associate's degree from a community college, I'm looking now at a private 4-year college because I like their one bachelor's track in a specific area, what are some incentives for me to do a 2-year to 4-year program? Is there time that I can save on not having to go, you know, 4 years to get that bachelor's, although I already have 2 years under my belt? So just be aware of that pathway and that term 2 to 4-year transition. We put some materials and resources on here for financial aid, also for post-secondary related to colleges and universities and employment. You know, the Think College, job accommodations, and youthhood, all in youthhood especially. You know, I just want everyone to know that, you know, the literature that's out there right now for higher ed professionals is that the increase in career exploration opportunities for middle school students is going through the roof. It's on the increase, because what the studies are showing is that when a student gets to high school, 9 through 12, they're going to start getting just overly piled on with the information from colleges and universities, and they kind of already either have an idea or they've been influenced by their families on where they're going to go. If you want to get into the, you know, and start working with a group, the colleges and universities are being directed and encouraged to work with middle school, 7th and 8th grade. That seems to be the targeted group now in this new trend, new wave on how to reach out to start talking about career exploration, with, of course, the indirect shameless plug of having colleges and universities support or sponsor those different career outreach programs. So if you have a student in high school, if you're the family member, you know, the household head of household, and you have someone in high school, but also someone in middle school, just be aware that you're going to be, you know, approached to start thinking about, you know, options after high school, and especially post-secondary options in both of those different categories. The trends, other trends we wanted to make aware, and this always is, you know, important to link to the whole concept of this session of helping your student research post-secondary options. And again, this is because to be aware of the trends makes it easy for you then to have those search terms ready to go when you're online, because that's, or talking with someone in person. But we're seeing scholarship pathways even for apprenticeships. Where to find that information. You know, we have support here today from the Indiana Chamber of Commerce. You can get information from them, from their main office, guidance offices at high schools. Companies directly from themselves are even starting to offer information about apprenticeships. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be when we instantly think of apprenticeships, we think maybe welding, right? Just that was shared today, you know, about, okay, if someone goes into the career track of welding and they go to the trade school, and it's a pretty set, you know, a year after high school to complete that degree, but then get some other experiences that will support that additional year of trade education in high school. That's one way. But what we're also seeing now is there's a school, you know, Mount Aloysius College has entered in, this is for comparison, has entered an agreement with the NPC Corporation out of Duncansville. And what they're doing is, you know, for a high school student that would like to get a 2-year degree in computer science, what they want is juniors and seniors, and it's at your sophomore year, you make the decision if you want to apply. You will apply to start that computer science degree while in high school. So you'll get those college and high school courses. And then, right, if you participate in that program, the company, NPC, will give you a guaranteed apprenticeship for the summer when you graduate high school in the field of computer science. So we're seeing the industry partner strategically with the high schools and partner strategically with these higher ed institutions so that there is fully comprehensive apprenticeships that just don't link to trade, but link to also traditional, formal education tracks as well. And then that school has also identified pathways for that student then to go from 2-year to 4-year in computer science. So it's all linked. The other thing we're seeing free soft skills training. Again, this is all to help your student research post-secondary educational options. Is these soft skills are trainings that's for area high school students. Where to find this? It could be regional education facilities like the AIR or your high schools for themselves, or PA Career Links, or the different higher ed institutions. We're seeing these soft skill trainings at free to low cost to individuals. And what we're seeing is that that is a track where can really help anyone in any type of area that they want to go in as they pursue their variety of options after high school. Cost for higher education. Again, this is helping your student research post-secondary education options. Being aware of your student bill. Remember, semester versus year totals. Sometimes and all college and universities are different, but if you get a bill and you see it, don't be fooled. Make sure you understand the full implication of what a year looks like versus a semester breakdown. And I think that's something a lot of families don't necessarily see. So when researching online, make sure you're aware at total cost for a semester versus total cost for a year. Make sure to meet with financial aid early on. It's so important to start the conversations. It's one thing to have the exciting selections of all the different majors, and like Kelsey said earlier, I mean, people are changing their careers 5 to 7 times after after high school. Just think about how many times a student on average changes their major. It's a lot. So I wouldn't get so hooked on your individual students selecting majors or career tracks. It would be more so looking at the finances first and seeing if there's a different cost per different major or other implications like additional fees for certain majors. That's important to have those conversations now. Be honest with your admissions counselor. Like I said, it's a buyer's market, so your admissions counselor can be your friend in the process, and be honest and aware that you've been applying for applications at different other institutions, and they'll understand that, and they will try to say, can you show me or tell me what they're offering in aid so that there is a comparison? And so you can be the judgment, you can use your own judgment on what you choose to share and how you negotiate, because most of the time, majority of the private schools have the more leverage in negotiating sticker price versus what the actual cost is. They have more lee room into talking about what they can take off the top, like almost like a car purchasing process. Ask about scholarships. It's so important to complete the paperwork. The scholarships that are, that of course, there's ones that the admissions counselor can get you plugged in right away. But if there's still a balance that needs to be paid, like a couple grand, there's always opportunities at your post-secondary institutions, both at trade and in your traditional 2- and 4-year schools, that have scholarship opportunities that are outside what's offered right in the initial admissions process. And those scholarships can be, are usually, you have to ask about them. Usually they're posted on some wall in the financial office, or links on a website to the financial aid office. But it does require a little extra work to get those extra scholarships to make it even more affordable. And it usually requires an essay, which really isn't that much at all in terms of additional paperwork. The cost for year 1 to year 2. And when you're researching your post-secondary education option, just be aware that year 1 costs are different from year 2. And this is where we see a lot of students leaving, withdrawing, transferring to maybe a trade school or something that, different opportunity because of the cost. what happens is tuition increases. We all know that from maybe our personal experiences or family members' experiences. And what happens is aid typically stays the same. So your tuition increases, but aid stays the same. So there's going to be a bigger gap that you didn't plan before. And sometimes those year one scholarships, because schools are so aggressive on trying to get the front end, the new student in the door, that what will happen is that that particular aid that was offered in year one isn't a guaranteed aid for year two, and that might actually require a renewable process, which means they might have to reapply for that same aid, for that aid just to remain the same. So be very aware of what aid is year one versus year two. Year two, you'll have a better sense of what to expect once your son or daughter does apply for, register for classes after their first year for year two. That's when you kind of get a sense of what is expected for out-of-pocket expenses. Prepare for book expenses. On average, what we're seeing for post-secondary 2-year and 4-year is that anywhere from $500 to $1,000 per semester for books. Now, there's ways that schools are helping offset that cost. Each faculty member can have a book on file in the library. Sometimes students share books amongst themselves. Sometimes there's ebooks available, but just remember, preparing for book expenses is significant and sometimes often overlooked because you're worried about the bedding, what the room looks like if they're staying on campus, or how they're going to get to class if they're commuting. But remember, those are additional education expenses that are often overlooked. And it's something when you're looking for your researching your post-secondary education option, to really research at each institution, what are the average costs? And most of the time, the financial aid office or admissions counselor should have that information. And if they don't, they can get that for you. Prepare for educational related expenses like travel to clinicals. If your son or daughter is even looking for, maybe it's a 2-year program, like a 2-year nursing program or a 4-year nursing program, or maybe student teaching, there's going to be some added expenses like travel to and from those sites that are often not covered by the institutions themselves. So it's just something to be aware as you're looking and researching your post-secondary options. Is making sure you're aware, if you put together a tentative budget, which we recommend, to look at those other extra educational related expenses, make sure you're not surprised. Commuting is okay. Remember that. Room and board is optional for students. Now, there sometimes is a residency requirement given on each institution, but that's something you would exercise when talking to your admissions counselor to see if that really does apply to you. It's usually, dictated by whichever mile radius you live at each institution, but you can save a lot of money if your son or daughter does commute. And bring a list of questions to your campus tour. Those campus tour guides often are trained, yes, by the admissions leaders themselves on what's scripted to say, but sometimes if you ask those questions to the admissions counselor after the tour, you can get some good follow-up information. Costs for higher education. When you're looking at your post-secondary education options, we wanted to make sure that everyone recognizes that one thing to talk about or exploring is the academic support services fees. Most of these costs are covered by student fees, like the library and all the different search databases that your son or daughter will need for papers or projects and research moving forward in their post-secondary career. The writing center, tutors, and career centers, are often covered by student fees. If they're not, some schools actually do say, hey, if you want to use the tutoring center, you got to pay us. So that it fluctuates given each institution's preferences on how they dictate what fees are directly assigned to students. So be aware of that in your student research when you're looking at all these different post-secondary options. And deadlines are real. Applications, scholarships, special events like soft skills trainings or career presentations. Just remember, deadlines are real. Experiences are important. We can't stop talking about it. I know it's been a theme. Each experience, like taking upon opportunities to travel, maybe it's a mission trip at high school level, or maybe it's that gap year service, or maybe it is, you know, an opportunity for a summer camp. You know, traveling is important. I'm a big supporter of that. I've traveled, you know, 20 different countries with first generation full Pell eligible students. So students that have never been outside their hometown. And every time we come back, we debrief, and every time I've heard from students, and again, those are majority of students from Western Pennsylvania, they are just in awe about how much they've learned about what they have and where their life can go. It really does add in a component of extra coaching in the career trajectory, life trajectory dialogue. Job shadowings are important, never too early to start. You know, if you take your daughter or son to work day, those are great, those count. You know, when you think about job shadowing, you think about your family members, right? The network, or talk to the chambers and say, you know, which businesses offer some type of open door, you know, program that could allow their son or daughter to come in and experience this type of career. And most of the time you have to, like, it's there, you just have to ask for it. It's not like overly advertised. And if you can do that in high school, that really does allow some extra coaching while you're moving forward in the job, you know, post-secondary research process. Middle school programs are increasing. I mentioned it before. They're geared for career exploration. So take advantage of those. There's a lot of grant funding that's paying for these programs, and they really are unique. I'm fascinated by them myself, and I think everyone should take an advantage of them if they can, if their schedule allows it. And most of the time, those are not just in the summer, those are around the weekends during the academic years as well. So we end by, you know, just saying, you know, many people are overwhelmed by the variety of education and training options. The key is figuring out which one's right for you, for your family, and where do you see yourself going. And if you're lucky enough to have an occupation or career path in mind, you know, do the research and, you know, use some of the links that we offered today. And I'm just going to look to Danyelle to offer her insight and tips and advice that she would like to give in this topic. Thank you.
I would just say you've done a really complete job of explaining everything we talked about, Chris. And as in everything with your students and your children, just communication, because the more you know them and the more they're willing to talk to you, this won't be such a strange conversation for you, and you'll be able to guide them better personally on what they'd like to do, and so that they're not afraid to tell you, like, yes, I like the analogy earlier, I am a 4.0 student, but I want to take up a trade. So, you know, because you don't want to be 3 years into paying for college and find out that your student is just miserable and would rather be doing something else, and it happens. So I think there's so much information in the presentation and through the links that you can use to get a great start at this. And of course, reach out to your prospective colleges and talk to your guidance counselors, and just don't make any quick decisions. And as soon as my daughter's in the 7th grade, and we talk about this because with her sister, who is now 27, she loves her job, but we didn't know what she was going to do literally until like she almost graduated from IUP. So I'm starting to talk to my 7th grader about, like, what do you think you like? What do you think you'd like to do? And I still feel like I'm starting out late because it's such a giant decision for her. And she's like, Mom, what are you talking about? I'm in 7th grade. So, but, you know, don't get anxious about it, and just ask questions and talk to people who have been there before. So I think I'll leave you with that.
Mm-hmm.